This video was sponsored by absolutely no one. Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, did you? So it's finally here, the video I planned to upload at the start of December. Yeah, that didn't get a plan, did it? Anyway, hey there guys, I'm Will, and welcome to part 2 of FerrariWatch, the show that documents the movements of Charles Leclerc's singular brain cell. If you've not seen part 1, I'll leave a link to it in this video's description, but I think I've left you waiting long enough, so roll the intro. Let's quickly recap what we learnt in part 1 then. Ferrari, despite having a strong start to 2022, have seen their season gradually unravel to the point where it's more of a mess than whatever the hell is on top of Mattia Binotto's face. The recurring problem up to now seems to be reliability, be that in the form of the engine, hydraulics, or Charles' use of the racing line. And we've seen that even when the Ferraris work, their strategists decide it's time to go on strike. All the while, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have been running away with the championship, and as we pick up just after the summer break, the Dutchman leads Leclerc in the standings by a staggering 80 points. But don't worry, Binotto has said that there's absolutely no reason whatsoever Ferrari can't win the last 10 races of the year. I might as well put the word foreshadowing on the screen at this point. F1 would return then at Spa for the 2022 Belgian Grand Prix, and already we're in a bit of a unique situation. Both Leclerc and Verstappen will be taking engine penalties going into the weekend, theoretically taking them out of race-winning contention. That would be, provided half of the grid didn't decide to join them. Ocon, Norris, Zhou, Schumacher, Tsunoda and Bottas all took penalties, meaning after Verstappen stormed to a convincing pole anyway, he and Leclerc would start from 14th and 15th respectively. Up at the front, it was down to the slave drivers to battle it out for the lead, with even Lewis Hamilton looking to get into the mix, before he blasted off to the Shadow Realm. Meanwhile, Leclerc and Verstappen were battling into the points until Latifi thought he'd get his sponsors some TV time and brought out the safety car. It was at this point we realised Verstappen had spent his summer break playing Mario Kart, throwing a tear off from his visor into Charles Leclerc's brake duct. That led to Ferrari having to pit the Monegasque, which, being Ferrari, they managed to do at the worst possible point in the race, when everyone was bunched up behind the safety car. That dropped Leclerc to the rear of the field, forcing him to battle his way back up once again, but on the bright side, Sainz was comfortably leading the race. What? Cue Verstappen, who soared past the Ferrari like it was Mazepin in 2021, and given the win was now out of sight, it was time for Ferrari's strategy to get creative. Having been embarrassed by the lone Mercedes of Russell, Leclerc pitted from 5th in order to steal the fastest lap from Verstappen. This would be a tall order, but he at least had a big enough gap over Alonso behind. He did, didn't he? Inarguably their stupidest move yet, Ferrari weren't even able to read the timing screens, which stated Alonso was only 18 seconds back and no way clear of the typical pit stop window. As a result, Fernando slipstreamed Leclerc down the Kemmel Straight, passing the Ferrari for 5th, and scuppering any attempt to take that single fastest lap point away from Verstappen. Though Charles did repass Alonso on the last lap, it wasn't quite over yet for the Monegasque. Upon finishing the race, Leclerc sped in the pit lane on his way to Parc Ferme, awarding him with a penalty and putting him behind Alonso once again. So with another race in the bin and the population of Italy demanding Mattia Binotto's genitals on a silver plate, it was at least only a short wait until we got to Zandvoort, where Ferrari could hopefully redeem themselves. The Dutch Grand Prix had the added challenge of being Max Verstappen's home race, and thus the spectators throwing orange flares in the direction of any driver they didn't like. This at least wasn't as much of an issue for Ferrari, the Dutch fans clearly feeling that they were enough of a handicap to themselves anyway, and besides, Lewis Hamilton was still trundling around. The Brit would actually end up being a thorn in Ferrari's side this weekend, getting some extra practice at the venue after landing there following his flight on Alonso Airlines in Belgium. Then Sainz came into pits, and you know what? I'm just going to let the footage play itself.
Sainz is coming in for Ferrari. It's the shortest pit lane, I think, of the season. And can they get to work nice and speedily down at Ferrari?
No. No, they couldn't. Let's break this one down. When Carlos came in, the team didn't have the tyres ready to begin with. The Spaniards' slow entry into the stop gave them time to regroup before they realised that this isn't the Reliant Robin World Championship, and Formula 1 cars require 4 wheels to get on their way. Then, whilst the Scuderia are scrambling in the back for their missing tyre, one mechanic leaves his toys on the ground and need to be run over by Sergio Perez's Red Bull. You know, I should have just uploaded this pit stop. It couldn't sum up Ferrari's year any better. The Scuderia would end up coming home 3rd and 5th, with Verstappen taking yet another win thanks to a convenient retirement from Yuki Tsunoda. Actually, let's not bring that one up again. It would be another race to forget though. Ferrari were becoming less of a joke and more of an annoyance at this point. And now they had to go home. To Monza. The team thought that by disguising themselves in yellow, they might not get recognised and subsequently crucified by the Tifosi. They would, however, go on to have an alright weekend, taking pole on Saturday and leading for most of Sunday until the race directors fell asleep at the end and forgot to bring in the safety car. Realistically, we can't have much of a go at Ferrari here. They did do everything right within their power. I think the Tifosi saw this as well. They've now joined Team LH in slacking off the race directors. It seemed like the pressure was off then coming into Singapore. The team were coming off the back of an error-free weekend, and let's be real, the only people who thought the championship was still on either resided on Twitter or the Sky Sports punditry team. I haven't got much to report on with this one, other than the fact that the Red Bulls were just the better team, provided they knew what way the track went. Sergio Perez won the race, and we move on to Japan. In the right circumstances, Verstappen could wrap up the title here, though the emergence of rain threatened to put a spanner in the works. Carlos Sainz, however, had long since given up on the championship, reuniting with his old friend the gravel trap on the opening lap. The red flag was called out and we were left with hours upon hours upon hours of hearing how the title could be wrapped up, when really I should have just gone to bed at this point. When we did finally get going, it looked like the title would go on to the next round anyway, with Leclerc comfortably holding second behind a dominant Verstappen, though everything would change on the final lap. Sergio Perez chasing down the Monegasque, who was forced to make his own track up through the final corner to stay ahead. The FIA weren't particularly pleased with this, using their knowledge of the rulebook to penalise Leclerc and drop him back into 3rd behind Perez. If only they knew enough of the rulebook to realise what this meant, however, as Max Verstappen was now crowned champion, then told he wasn't champion, then made champion again. They always had to stick their noses in, don't they? But the Drivers' Championship was over. In a title battle so dull, Diedrich Mateschitz died of boredom, and his team were the one winning everything. All the work wasn't totally over yet though, as Ferrari still had a chance to win the Constructors' Championship. Well, a slim chance at least. Sainz taking pole at Kota certainly bolstered the Scuderia's spirits, though the sudden arrival of George Russell brought everyone back to reality. Leclerc came home 3rd, though it wasn't enough to stop Red Bull taking the Constructors' Championship for the first time since 2013. The team deserved it in the end. They raced well, strategized well, and took advantage when Ferrari handed half of their wins to them on a plate. The Scuderia, on the other hand, had a lot of thinking to do, having to use the remaining races to work out exactly how they went from shoo-ins for the title to the laughingstock of the grid. When asked about this, Leclerc rephrased this slightly, claiming that the team would be experimenting with strategy calls at the back end of 2022. What the hell was all this then? The final few races went without major incidents, at least on the strategy front, though the Scuderia's lack of, well, speed became more and more evident, the whole team seeming just to have thrown in the towel, forgetting that the championship wasn't quite over yet. While the Ferrari pace was falling off, Mercedes were finally building up some momentum, taking George Russell's maiden win in Brazil and making us think Ferrari's P2 in the Constructors wasn't quite as set in stone as they first thought. The same could be said for Leclerc's second place in the drivers' standings, Red Bull's Sergio Perez closing in on that position as well, though Leclerc was at least helped by the fact Verstappen is as much of a team player as Stroll is a clean driver. When it got to the last round in Abu Dhabi, anything was possible, though the Scuderia ended up just doing enough to hold their position and put the mess that was 2022 finally behind them. So, where does all that leave us? Well, a season that had with it so much promise in the beginning, but ended in bitter disappointment. There were problems across the board, the strategy team, the drivers, and in the end, it all comes down to just one man. The resignation of Mattia Binotto was no huge surprise at all, and after everything that had happened, he kinda needed to go. Ferrari broke script for once by backing their team principal all the way in 2022, rather than just throwing their staff off the Maranello roof like they have in the past. And maybe Binotto was given too many responsibilities for just one man. But the blame has to lie with someone. Frederic Vasseur will definitely be an interesting replacement, and I think he's the right man for the job. Next season won't be an easy one, however, with a potential three-way fight on the cards with Merck and Verstappen racing. But at least Ferrari have a management team in place. Williams. So, how do you think the prancing horses will get on in 2023? Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video though, and that it was finally worth the wait. If you did, please consider dropping it a like, commenting absolutely anything you want to help the algorithm, and subscribing for more videos like this every Sunday in 2023. A final thank you has to go to all of my patrons, and if you want to get involved with that, or just check out any of my other social media, you can do so by clicking on the links in the description. But for now, that's all from me, so I'll see you soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.